This is the top 10 things we wish we knew before getting a Tegu. Before I get into the list, I just wanted to say that the we I refer to in the title and throughout this video is my girlfriend and I, as she helped me put the list together. She won't be making an appearance in this video, however. Also, many of the things on this list can apply to more than Tegus and even more than just reptiles. After you hear all 10 topics on the list, you'll be able to tell that a couple were added to round out the list to 10 in total. That doesn't mean the entire topic is irrelevant, it's just not as good as the other topics. Alright, let's get into the list. Number 1. Going to the vet. It's going to happen. This is something you always hear about whenever somebody makes a video like this, but then you just think, oh, that won't happen to me. As long as I do everything correctly, then there will never be a need to go to the vet. That is exactly what we thought when getting into the reptile hobby, and for the most part, this can be true, but there will always be unexpected things that will happen that will cause your animal to need to go to the vet. This can be anything from a bad batch of feeders that leads to parasites to a full-on prolapse or impaction. We've gone to the vet more times than we ever have in the first year that we had reptiles. This is not so much something we wish we knew, but something we wish we understood more instead of assuming that it wouldn't happen. Number 2. They can be very picky. Make sure you have a lot of different food options available. Tegus are smart, and with that comes being stubborn. Sometimes a Tegu will simply not like the food you're offering, or they might just be putting on a hunger strike until you give them what they want. In Marshmallow's case, this was mice. For quite a while when we first got her, she wouldn't eat anything other than pinky mice. The best thing you can do in this situation is only offer them food that you know is good for them, even if they're not eating it. Eventually, their animalistic instincts will kick in, and they will devour anything that you put in front of them. This will usually be some form of protein. They will not eat if they have an impaction or a parasite though, so you have to be careful of that when your Tegu is hunger striking. Nothing is in black and white. Number 3. Not guaranteed to be puppy dog tame, even if you train them daily. What I mean by this is you can get your Tegu when they are 3 weeks old, hold them every day, they can fall asleep on top of you, you can feed them by hand, and they can still grow up and not be a cuddly little puppy like you might have seen on YouTube or on forums. If all the things I just listed happen, then there's a very good chance that they will be very trusting and not aggressive in the slightest. They will probably even want to cuddle and fall asleep on you. You just have to understand that there's a possibility that the personality of your Tegu will just not be into that. Some might even be aggressive even though you did everything perfectly. I'm not sure what determines how they will be when they're older, but if I had to guess, I would say nurture is more important than nature, but nature definitely plays a role when it comes to personality. Number 4. Do a lot of research. A lot more than you think, even if you've done a lot already. This applies for any pet you plan on getting. You should know as much as possible before actually being responsible for a Tegu's life. You should read up so that you know what to do in every situation that might happen while caring for your Tegu. We did a ton of reading and video watching before we got Marshmallow, and even then I felt that I could have done more and it would have helped when problems started to happen. Eventually you'll get to the point where you're ready to get a Tegu and you'll find yourself reading just as much as you did before you got one. The Googling of questions never stops in the reptile hobby. Number 5. Building the enclosure was easier than expected. Not easy, but easier. I make this a topic because I know how stressful the enclosure building process can be when you're at the very beginning. It's very overwhelming thinking about building an 8-foot-long box and making sure it's water resistant and stable all at the same time. This process will be easier for some people who are very handy with tools and wood, but we definitely weren't, so we were very stressed out about making sure it wasn't going to fall apart. The biggest tip I have for this is simply take it one step at a time, and of course don't stress out. I made a video about how we built our enclosure, so feel free to check it out if you want to see a couple of noobs build one to give you confidence in your own building skills. Number 6. Save your receipts. Things are going to break or burn out and you will benefit from returning them. This one might also be very obvious to some of you watching, but for the first couple of months, we just threw away all of our receipts as soon as we got them for everything reptile related, and then regretted it when they would inevitably break. Some reptile decorations end up not working out, but the biggest item I can recommend you keep receipts for is the light bulbs used for heating. I believe at PetSmart receipts are valid for about 3 months, and conveniently our lizard's heat lamps burn out every 2.5 months or so. All we have to do is bring the light back with the original packaging and receipt, and they exchange the light out free of charge. You of course have to exchange it for the same wattage bulb, but I can't see any reason why you would want a different wattage anyway. I've never had a UVB bulb burn out, thankfully, but basking bulbs burn out all the time. This is something that you will learn pretty quickly, but hopefully me telling you now will save you some money that otherwise wouldn't have been saved. Number 7. They will poop every day, just like any other pet you have. This is extremely obvious, but I make it a point because I feel like reptiles can be placed in a separate category from cats or dogs. I'm not sure if this is totally true, but people might think that, hey, it's a tegu or a bearded dragon, so it'll just sit there and be cute and eat every once in a while. This obviously isn't true. Beardies and tegus eat every day, so that means they will poop every day and you will have to clean it every day. This isn't as important a topic as some of the others, but I felt it was necessary to point out because I personally didn't have it in my mind when getting a tegu or bearded dragons or any of our animals. It's kind of immature and irresponsible thinking, but I of course clean up after them, so I thought it was just worth mentioning. Number 8. Take everything you read with a grain of salt. Nothing is better than actual experience. This is a follow-up to number 4, the research point I made previously. All I mean by this is something I touched on earlier, which is you will learn best by actually doing it as opposed to just reading it. There's great information online about how to care for a tegu, but there's also a lot of misinformation floating around that is not only not helpful, but could also be detrimental to your tegu's health. I'm not saying disregard everything you read, but try to refer to a lot of resources out there, then figure out all of the husbandry details yourself and what works best for your environment before mindlessly following a single guide you found online. As previously stated, nothing is better for learning how to properly care for your animal than experience, but you can also not do too much reading, so read as much as possible. Number 9. Humidity. This one is mostly for people who live in dry states or parts of the world, such as myself, but I thought if I made a secure enclosure with limited ventilation and sprayed it down every day that I could maintain tropical levels of humidity. Unfortunately, that didn't go as planned because Colorado is very dry and sucks the moisture out of everything. Also, if you've been following Marshmallow's skin issue videos, then you'll know that those were caused by dryness. Basically, what I'm saying with this point is be aware of your humidity where you live and make sure to keep up the humidity in your enclosure accordingly. And just to add to that point, baths are definitely a requirement with tegus, and especially if you live in a dry location. I would say even if you live in a nice, humid, tropical environment, to still give them baths every now and then. Number 10. Don't stress out or overthink anything. Bad things will unfortunately happen, and the best you can do is be prepared. It is very easy to overthink things when something goes wrong. Just remember to take things one step at a time and try your best to do everything correctly. I'm mostly talking about when your animal isn't eating, isn't acting normal, prolapsed, or literally any unfortunate thing that could happen. I don't know if anyone watching this tends to think their pet is going to die and the world is going to end when something reasonably worrisome happens, but I know I do. After taking care of my tegu for a while now, I know that if her behavior is odd, just to watch her closely and try my best to not think the worst. This is one of those things that a lot of people are probably going to roll their eyes at and dislike the video for, but I thought it was worth mentioning for anyone out there that has trouble thinking the worst of a situation. I'm one of those people, and if I can take care of a tegu, then I'm sure you can too. Disclaimer.
There are a lot more things than just confidence that are required to take care of a tegu.
Alright guys, thank you so much for watching, and especially if you made it this far. I know this was a long video, but if you have anything else to add to the list from your own experience, then leave it in the comments and maybe we can get a discussion going. Consider leaving a rating on this video if you enjoyed, and be sure to check out some of the other videos on our channel. Also, consider subscribing and hitting that little bell icon so you don't miss any of our videos, because from what I've been hearing, YouTube hasn't been sending videos to sub boxes even if you're subscribed. So that bell icon will let you know when we upload. Alright, thanks guys.